Ms. Angelski, I wanted to ask, in my opening statement, I talked about ARCH2, the hydrogen hub, and how excited we are to have that coming to our region, particularly my state. But each hub has selected different mixes of pathways for producing, and I think that was written into the bill. And so when it comes to build out of our nation's hydrogen infrastructure, where do you think the initial demand will come from, and what will the associated emission benefits be?
Of course, thank you, Senator Capito, and I'm familiar with the hub, and that's West Virginia, the ARCH2 hub. The important attribute, I would say, about the hydrogen hubs generally is that they will enhance that sort of network effect that's needed by aggregating both the production, the transport, and end-use demand, and enable that infrastructure to be shared and be lower cost, at least initially, as the industry grows. One significant benefit of what the ARCH2 hub is looking at is that they have a variety of end-use sectors that exist within the hub that can take advantage of it. So you have, if you think about the existing markets, those are probably the lowest hanging fruit in terms of emissions reductions and targets where those can where hydrogen can be adopted in those sectors. And that's because they already need hydrogen and use hydrogen. But the other sectors, as in the industrial, so for plastics, chemicals, whether we're talking about transportation fuels outside of the industrial sector or even in other industrial end uses like cement or concrete, that's where hydrogen can grow and expand. But to do that, we'll need some additional policy and price support likely. But that's, the industrial sector is the third largest emitting sector. So the sooner we actually use hydrogen in those sectors, the sooner we'll see those emissions benefits.
Yeah. Let me talk a bit. I mentioned permitting and how there have been some bureaucratic headwinds to getting these projects approved. How concerned are you about the permitting process that we're seeing on the Class 6 wells? And then there's the issue of permitting the transport of hydrogen as well. So could you speak a little bit to the permitting?
Sure. As it relates to the Class 6 permits, I mean, you mentioned it in your opening remarks, right? I think there are almost 60 applications pending before EPA. One has a provisional permit out of the 60. And many of these applications were filed years ago. So you all obviously provided funding to EPA and the regional offices to really try to help expedite the processing of applications. And the hope is that once EPA is able to staff up, get the expertise, I think there's also a lack of expertise at the moment to provide that resource and to serve the resource needs throughout the country. Hopefully, those funds will catalyze that and really help to accelerate processing of those applications. But it is a concern because obviously the longer, as you know, permitting takes, that's the time value of money for project developers. And the same is true when we're talking about any infrastructure component of a project, including pipelines, as you mentioned. I think that probably the biggest concern is with respect to siting of pipelines and the time it takes to site, and that's a permitting issue. It's also a local landowner and other regional or community set of issues. And I think appropriate engagement in the communities, but then also streamline siting authority among the federal agencies in particular would be really critical to go a long way in accelerating or processing those more quickly.
Dr. Ellis, you mentioned that you're going to site your first manufacturing facility in Massachusetts. How far along are you on that project? Have you gotten into the permitting parts of that yet?
Yes, we've already gotten into permitting. We were lucky to find a plot of land that was already zoned industrial, and we.
So was it a brownfield?
It was a brownfield site. However,
advantage.
I would share your concern about permitting timelines. It is something where you can be a startup and you can deploy all these resources, but at a certain point you have to hurry up and wait if you're being held back by permitting. And I think especially with the enhanced scrutiny that comes with taking government funding from the IPA, for example, from the Office of Clean Energy Demonstration, if we were to win that funding, we would be subject to NEPA, and that could very much create a situation in which we hurry up and then wait.
So your permits now are just through Massachusetts, your state permitting?
That's right.
Yeah, generally they go faster. All right, thank you.